Today I asked a ton of fellow content creators and pro players to tell me how long they think it would take an average player to reach 5 different thresholds of skill in Rainbow Six Siege. I then injected my own opinion into the matter and calculated the average. So, do you ever wonder how long the grind in Siege really is? Well, make sure you watch the video all the way through because the numbers we came to will surprise you. Now, before I can go into the actual hour counts we came to, I must first go over the different skill thresholds I showed the content creators. And the first one is the beginner skill threshold. This is basically the bare minimum amount of skill to kind of play ranked in general. People in this skill threshold have basic map knowledge. They can just get around the map and they know where rooms are. They may not know all of the callouts, but they know some basic callouts. They understand how to play a handful of operators and how to counter maybe a handful of operators. And they also know how the basic mechanics of the game works, things like defusing, planting the bomb, and they know how the objective game modes work. But outside of that, they just know the basics of Siege. They don't know anything additional to get them higher up in the Siege ranks. They just know the bare minimum to actually play the game. And these players are typically your bronze or silver level players. Then the next skill threshold that I showed them was intermediate. Now, this is when players start actually taking the game a little more seriously. They understand the basics of all the maps. So they understand basic map callouts for almost every room on every map. They also understand all the operators and all of their counters, so they can effectively play pretty much every operator in the game. They might not be the best at every operator in the game, but they can at least know how every operator works, their basic functionality, and things of that nature. Additionally, they'll also have some pretty decent gun skill at this point. They'll no longer suck at aiming or controlling recoil. They'll basically know how to control every gun in the game to some degree. And these players are typically going to be your gold to emerald level players. Somewhere in that range is what I expect these players to be. And that's going to be the intermediate skill level. Then the next skill level I gave was champ. It's pretty obvious what this is. This is how long we think it would take for a player to hit their first champion rank. Typically, these players are going to know every call out on every map. They're going to know all the call outs for ranked, every single one. On top of knowing all the call outs, they're also going to have a pretty above average gun skill. They're not going to be anything crazy, but they're going to be able to basically control every recoil pattern in the game. They're going to have a pretty easy time taking gunfights and winning gunfights against other players in their rank. And they're going to be able to hold their own in the champ elo area. Additionally, these players will also understand all maps at a pretty high level, so they'll know where to play vertically. If they're playing sledge or buck, they'll know where to make the vert holes at. If they're defending, they'll know where to make the head holes, where to make the rotates, where to reinforce walls, how to set up every operator's gadget on each map. They're going to have pretty extensive map knowledge, typically, at least a champion player will. And then also, this is where players start to get a real game sense. Their game sense is going to be a lot higher than the average player, and they're going to understand what to do in a lot of situations, when to rotate, what angles to hold, what angles not to hold, when to swing people and when not to swing people. They're going to have a lot deeper of a knowledge on those kind of topics compared to someone in the intermediate level. Then moving past champ, the next skill level I gave was advanced. And the reason why I put advanced above champ is because I feel like now in the current situation with rank 2.0, champ is a little easier to hit. So there is going to be an advanced bracket, which these are going to be the players that are better than your average champ. These are probably the players that consistently hit top 1000 or top 100 champion every season. They're very, very good at the game. They're better than pretty much every other person in the ranked queue, except for themselves and a handful of other players. They're also able to hold their own in low-level tournaments outside of ranked. So if they need to hop on a tournament with a prize pool, if they have a competent team around them, they can easily win any tournament that they get put into. They've also obviously mastered every single map and every single operator. They know the deep ins and outs of pretty much every single mechanic in the game as well. They know how to quick lean. They know how to, they know when to peek a corner. They know what angles to hold. They know all of that. They have a very deep game sense. They're going to know when to rotate. They're going to know basically everything you could possibly need to know about Siege. They're going to know. The only thing that they don't know is how to play the game at a professional level. That's it. So basically, they have the maximum amount of knowledge for a ranked player to have before transitioning into Pro League, is basically what the advanced skill bracket is. Then the final skill bracket, which is pretty obvious at this point, is professional. These players are players that can hold their own in tier 1 and tier 2 level tournaments. They have a really deep knowledge on how to actually play the game professionally. They can pretty much wreck any other players in low level tournaments. They have a very easy time winning in ranked, especially with their fellow pro players in a stack. They understand all the Pro League level strategies and play styles, so they know the default site setup for Pro League. They have their own site setups for Pro League with their 5-stack or team, and they're also able to play extremely effectively against the top 1% of players in Siege. So the professional player is someone like your Bolos, your Shikos, people like that. How long would it take someone to hit that level of gameplay? Which obviously that's going to be a very high hour count, because you're going to be spending a lot of time scrimming, doing playing low level tournaments, practicing against other teams of your skill level. Since you can't really play ranked, you're gonna have to spend a lot more time scrimming other teams at your ranking, because these players in the professional bracket, they're so good that playing in ranked is like really no hard task for them. They can easily win any ranked game if they wanted to. If they actually put forth all their effort, they could easily stomp any team in ranked and get to the top elo. But a lot of professional players actually aren't ranked because they don't spend a lot of time in ranked. So I'm not, there obviously could be champ if they wanted to, but that doesn't necessarily mean that a professional player has to be champ. Okay, well, now that you understand the ins and outs and the basics of each skill bracket, I'm now going to go through and give you the hours. These are rough estimates that we came to for each skill bracket. Now, keep in mind, these hours are definitely subject to change. Some players learn a lot faster than others. Additionally, some players will look up guides and look up tutorials outside of actually playing the game, which players who actually put forth that level of effort to get better at the game will definitely climb up these skill brackets a lot quicker. So obviously, someone who's just playing the game doesn't really care that much about improving. They're going to have a lot harder time climbing up these skill brackets to someone who's legitimately dedicated to getting better at Siege. So that's why these hour counts are a lot harder to estimate. But I think these numbers are relatively accurate. I think we've came to a pretty good consensus on this one. Now, for the first skill bracket, we have the beginner skill bracket, as I mentioned earlier, which we estimated this to be about 75 to 100 hours. I legitimately think that if you just put in some minuscule effort within your first 100 hours of the game, you could pretty easily get to the beginner skill level, because all you have to do is you look up a couple of videos, and then you can have a basic understanding of how a handful of operators work. And if you just look up a couple of videos on like 1 or 2 or 3 maps, you can then have some basic knowledge on how 3 or 4 maps go. And also just playing the game within your first 100 hours, you'll figure out how the objectives work. You'll figure out how to the basics of setting up a bomb site. You'll figure all that stuff out pretty quickly, as long as you're just playing the game a decent amount. And I think 100 hours is definitely a pretty good estimate of how long it would take your average player to hit the beginner skill level. Then after the beginner, it immediately jumps up to 400 hours for intermediate. And I think this is actually really accurate as well, because understanding the basics of all maps is going to take you a decent amount of time, especially if you're wanting to know all the call outs on those maps and you want to know how all the operators interact with that map. It can take you a very long time to learn all the maps in that level. And so intermediate can be a pretty big jump. A lot of the people I asked actually said intermediate was a lot higher. A lot of them said it was actually like 1,000 hours, but based on the averages, we came up to around 400. So me personally, I think that this is a pretty accurate representation. I probably would have said somewhere around the 500 hour mark, but considering that it doesn't take that long to learn the basics of every operator, and it doesn't take that long to learn the basics of every map, it shouldn't take you that long to hit the intermediate level. And also hitting platinum or emerald is not as hard as a lot of people portray it is. As long as you actually commit yourself to improving at the game, you're looking up guides, you're practicing in T-Hunt and the shooting range to better your aim, you can pretty easily hit the plat and emerald rankings. Then for champ, our hour count nearly doubles to 1,100. Now this is a very, very rough estimate for hour counts, where we were not dead set on this champion hour count at all, because with rank 2.0, it's very hard to judge how difficult it would be for a new player to hit champion. But we estimate that would probably be somewhere around the 1,100 hour mark, because I kind of consider the champion rank right now to kind of be what old diamond used to be. It is difficult to hit champion, but as long as you're actually committing yourself to improving at the game, you'll be able to master every operator and every map by the 1,000 hour mark, in my opinion, pretty easily. Additionally, you'll also know all the callouts at that point, because if you're playing ranked consistently for 1,100 hours, you're going to learn all the callouts, whether that be from other people telling you the callouts, or just from you, looking it up online, looking at map guides, things of that nature. That will also give you the knowledge that you need to know all the callouts. Then for the above average gun skill, once again, if it's as long as you're practicing in the shooting range and in T-hunts and you're just playing the game a lot, you'll eventually get to that level where you can control all the guns in the game and you can hold your own against other ranked players. So to me, I don't think this estimate is that low. I know a lot of you will think that this estimate is pretty low for your first champion, but considering that I've talked to a lot of players that have around this hour count and they were able to hit champ, I think it is definitely possible for your average player, if they really committed themselves, they could probably hit champ at this ranking. But keep in mind, for some players, this may take 2,500 hours. And for some players, this could take 800 hours. It depends on how good your gun skill is from other FPS games, because that does transfer. If you're a very good CSGO player, you may be able to hit champ in 800 hours or in 500 hours. If your gun skill is really good and all you have to learn is the maps and the operators, you might have a lot easier of a time hitting champion. So it kind of all depends on your skill level from other games previously. Now for the advanced skill bracket, we have another large jump in hour count from 1,000 hours to 2,500 hours. And I think this is a pretty accurate representation as well. I consider myself to be somewhere in between the advanced and champ skill bracket. I also have 2,500 hours on PC, and that's why I think this is pretty accurate, because for a lot of players, if they committed themselves a lot harder than I did to improve at the game, they could definitely hit the advanced skill bracket by 2,500 hours, because I'd consider myself to be pretty close to that, but not there exactly yet. And because this bracket just consists of players that are able to hold their own in low-level tournaments and players that are, you know, in the top 1,000 of champs, I really don't think it's that difficult to achieve that within the 2,500 hour mark. You can definitely achieve it if you commit yourself, which I've been saying throughout this entire video, but genuinely, if you committed yourself to trying to improve, 2,500 hours, I think, is a really good estimate. I know 2,500 hours sounds like a lot, but that hour count really isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. If you compare it to other games like CSGO and stuff like that, 2,500 hours really isn't that much. So to me, I think 2,500 hours is a pretty good estimate. Then moving to the pro skill bracket, we have another very large hour count jump from 2,500 to 5,000 plus hours. We could not narrow down an hour count for this at all. Me and fellow content creators and some pro players that I talked to as well, we couldn't really narrow down an hour count. Some people said 10,000 hours. Some people said 3,000 hours. Some people said 8,000 hours. It was just kind of all over the place. So that's why I put 5,000 plus, because a lot of us, most of us actually, ended up landing in the 5,000 to 10,000 hour range. And I think that is a pretty accurate representation of how many hours it would take to go professional, especially with how many operators there are in the game right now, how large the skill gap is right now, and how far ahead pro players are from the average ranked player, especially now with the whole TDM meta. I think it would take a very long time for you to go from a advanced ranked player to a professional player, because you have to keep in mind, an advanced player, they're just able to hold their own in like very low tier level tournaments. In Pro League, they're not going to be able to stand a chance, and that's because Pro League is played in a very different way from ranked. So you can't just go from ranked directly into Pro League. When you're going into Pro League, you're basically learning an entire new game on top of Siege, because they play the game completely differently. They rely a lot more on utility, and they also have completely different site setups, completely different ways to play each map, because a lot of Pro League games, especially defenses, have very extended holds. So someone who's just your typical ranked gunner, they're going to get slept in Pro League if they're trying to do what they do in ranked in Pro League. So I think I'm pretty happy with these numbers overall, though. I'm definitely curious to see what you guys think, though. If you disagree with some of these hour counts, definitely leave a comment and give me your ranking. I'm definitely interested to hear from you guys on that. If you guys want to take the different skill brackets and leave a comment of what you think the hour counts are, that would definitely be something I'm open to reading, and I'm open to hearing your guys' opinion on this topic, because I just find this very interesting. Siege is a game with a humongous skill gap, so I'm sure a lot of people have very different hour counts for these different skill levels. But anyways, that's probably going to wrap up today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, I make Siege content just like this twice a week, so go subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter if you don't want to miss the next upload. If you want to see more of me, go follow me on Twitch, because I'll be going live roughly 2 hours after this video goes up, and hopefully I'll see you there. Also, if you want to see yourself in new videos or streams, join up in the Discord. I want to get active over there, so don't be afraid to join up. I'm sure we'll have a lot of fun. Now, if you want to watch another video just like this one of VB popping up on your screen right now, then I'm sure you'll enjoy. I'll see you next time, friends, and peace.